Yes, people, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are all doing well. So, have you seen this? The Eric Cantona interview with The Athletic's Adam Crafton is pretty good. An in-depth interview. He talks about Qatar. He talks about many different things, standing up for social issues. It's just an Eric Cantona interview. But one bit took my eye, and it was about him being rejected by Manchester United when he offered his services to the club in like a director of football, or as he calls it, a president of football position. Now it's interesting, isn't it? Manchester United have been on the lookout for this kind of figure for an awfully long time, yet Eric Cantona was rejected. Now we're going to have a look at that story, and of course another story has popped up today, which is in relations to David de Gea and his future. We did a video over the weekend where we spoke about how he could be leaving Manchester United on a free next summer, and it looks like Juventus could be someone that are interested in taking him, and we'll look at that very shortly as well. But before we do get stuck into all of that, make sure you're hitting that like button and of course subscribing as well. Get hitting that subscribe button, please. When I check the stats on these videos, loads of people watch my videos that aren't subscribed yet. What are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. Anyway, let's get stuck into some of these quotes from the King, from Eric Cantona. And he said, as I said, last year I proposed to the club to change their way. He says, explaining how he met up with the club's former executive vice chairman before Woodward left his post at the end of 2021. Now Cantona says, Ed Woodward is great at marketing, but not great at football. Here. United should have a chairman, and then they should have a president of marketing, and then a president of football, who is in charge of all the decisions in football. So I proposed to them that I should be president of football. Now, whilst Manchester United fans have never called it president of football, it is something that we have often said United needed as a go-between between the manager and the owners and Ed Woodward and all those kind of things. And then Adam Crafton in the article says it is not immediately clear whether Cantona is being serious, so he seeks clarity. You suggested yourself. Yes, he says. He goes, I met him a few times, but they did not accept it. I still think me or somebody else, they should have somebody for football. It should be somebody from the club who knows football, knows the club. Adam Crafton pointed out that they now have a football director in John Murtough, and he says yes, but he is not a president of football. He went on to say, since Ferguson retired in 2013, the club doubled their revenue but didn't win anything. United have won the Europa League, FA Cup, EFL Cup since Ferguson, but not a title or Champions League. It was explained. That's not what Cantona said. So imagine if you succeed in football and also have great people in marketing, then instead of doubling the revenue, then you would treble it, but they do not understand that. The club spends a lot of money, but you have to spend it well. Now, when asked about whether he agreed with Gary Neville on whether it's time up for the Glazers, he said, yes, maybe. I thought about something also. This club has, on social media, hundreds of thousands of fans. If they create an application today saying that 50% of the club can be sold, then why should you have one person or two people who invest 500 million? Instead, you can have hundreds of millions of people who spend 10, 20, 100,000 euros, and 50% of the club is owned by real fans of Manchester United. With social media now, you could do it like this. It's an interesting proposition from him. Now, obviously, it would mean the Glazers would have to be open to something like that, which they're never going to be open to something like that. They're not going to give up their dividends. And it's interesting to hear, obviously, a club legend calling out the current ownership structure at the club. The owners saying it's probably time up for them. And, of course, suggesting how he'd offered his position. He'd offered himself in a role, and it was never, ever considered. Now, obviously, Ed Woodward eventually left the club. Maybe that was something he knew his time was up. Maybe he knew John Murtough was coming in and he didn't have to get involved in that. But this is something that we've seen on countless occasions from Man United. Now, look, Eric Cantona, I love him. Now, whether he'd be a good director of football or not, I don't know. Or a president of football, or whatever he calls it. I don't know. But one thing that he would have is Manchester United at heart, the fans at heart, and the well-being of the football club, you know, as it functions on the pitch, at heart as well. And he'd be a real connection between the fan base and the club. And if you have all those ingredients, which you hold the football team in high regard, you hold the fans in high regard, and you understand football, then you've already, you know, ticking a load more boxes than the Glazers and Ed Woodward would have ticked. obviously, it's a position he's never held. He had a role at New York Cosmos. He's never really held a position in football. So it's an unknown. But what it does tell you is how the Glazers, how Ed Woodward, over the years have just almost been deaf to advice. How many times have we heard promises about X, Y, Z never been fulfilled? How many times have they said they're going to do this and that? Never happens. And when they get it from someone that's has the club at heart, even if he's eccentric and he's Eric Cantona, they kind of just ignore it. It's interesting. But I love Eric Cantona, and if you want to check out the interview, then obviously head over to The Athletic. I'm not going to quote the whole thing here. It's a really long interview, and it's a good one. I just finished reading it myself now. I love Eric Cantona, man. One of my favourite moments ever is interviewing Eric Cantona. I still can't believe it till this day. We also heard from Calcio Mercato that Juventus could look to sign David de Gea in the summer to replace Chesney, as they believe it would be a significant upgrade and on a free transfer. Now, we did a video a little bit more in depth about David de Gea's future, which you can go and check out once we're finished here. I said at the time I wasn't sure if any club would come forward for him. Obviously, clearly wrong. You're hearing talk about Juventus. Now, what that could be is stuff being put out there by his agent, but I have no doubt that there will be clubs that will be looking out there. And, you know what I mean, he's a huge improvement on Chesney. And maybe for a club like Juventus, it'd be a good move for him, going out to Italy and all those kind of things. Look, I want De Gea to stay, sign a new contract on reduced terms, and us to bring in a new goalkeeper and compete. But we know footballers have egos. If someone that's been number one for an awfully long time, is someone that's done an awful lot for the club. Now, he could surprise us all and absolutely smash it for the rest of the season. I don't think he's been particularly bad. But you just know that Erik ten Hag will be looking and thinking, I need a goalkeeper that can do this with his feet. And therefore, David De Gea's future comes into question. His contract's expiring. Clubs are going to be queuing up for him. So Man United need to make a decision fast, really, because we've seen in the past, Pogba, Herrera, Lingard, once they sense, the club don't want me and I can get a huge signing on fee or better wages, massive wages, because the club that I'm going to next aren't going to pay a transfer fee for me. It's going to become a lot more difficult for United to negotiate then. So we do need to kind of step it up and decide what we want to do ASAP, really probably by Christmas or the World Cup break, which I'm sure Erik ten Hag is already thinking about. But Juventus seemingly interested in David De Gea. I think it would be a good move for him if he was to move on from Manchester United. Anyway, let us know your thoughts on everything we've discussed today. Get your comments in the comments below and make sure you're keeping it locked as well. I have been AdamMcKola. This has been youtube.com/AdamMcKola. And make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. See you later.